Hi there, I'm Max King. Welcome back to another episode of From the Archive. Today we're talking about Last Knights. Last Knights was directed by Kazuki Kiriya and was initially going to be more about samurais. However, Clive Owen and Kazuki Kiriya both kind of realized that since they were going to have an international cast, they should probably use knights, as that has more of an international connotation, as opposed to samurai, which are strictly from Japan. They were also going to shoot some locations in India, but for one reason or another they couldn't get off the ground and decided to move locations to Prague. The film was released on April 3rd, 2015 and was a colossal bomb. It only made $1.8 million of its $19.3 million back. And critics really felt that this film really didn't live up to the hype, as it was kind of a stale film to them, as it really didn't have much going for it. What do I think? Well, let's talk about it. Last Knights takes place in this fantasy world that's more than likely not Earth, and follows Raiden, played by Clive Owen, who is this knight who serves under Lord Bartok, played by Morgan Freeman. One day, Bartok is summoned to Gizamat, played by Kessi Hinia. I apologize if I butchered that name, which I probably did. And he's summoned there to give Gizamat a bribe, as Gizamat's this advisor to the Emperor. And Bartok is not having any of it. He does not want to give Gizamat a bribe to just basically keep his own power base and kind of take away from the people who serve him in a weird way, just so he can maintain his base. And this causes conflict between Gizamat and Bartok. And Bartok ends up pointing a sword to his throat, which ends up causing Bartok to be convicted and condemned to death, leaving Raiden and the rest of Bartok's knights scattered in the wind and with the unbelievable task of regaining Bartok's honor by defeating Gizamat. So this film is very similar to the 47 Ronin folklore tale from Japan. I'm not talking about the 47 Ronin movie with Keanu Reeves, because that movie is awful. But this film is clearly indicative of that story. You have a group of warriors who are following an honor code that is dying out, and their master is wrongfully executed because of another evil lord's plan, and it's up to them to kill the evil lord and restore their master's honor. And I really like stories like this. You don't have to do a ton of heavy lifting with stories like this. I get into them pretty easily. I can buy into the overall feel rather quickly. And this story is no different here. I really enjoy the overall pacing and feel of this film, as we see these characters struggle with their vow of brotherhood and vow of honor, and how that relates to them having to avenge their lord, even though it will more than likely mean most of their deaths. And it's really a well-paced story, as it builds up to that inevitable confrontation that is going to happen quite well. I will say the middle can come across as a little bit slow and feels kind of superfluous at times, as you know what's going to happen, as this film doesn't have a ton of twists and turns in it. But at the same time, it didn't really bug me a ton, and I feel like that's really a nitpick. I think that overall the film is paced well enough that you can get through it rather easily, and is simple enough to understand, and it doesn't overcomplicate its own story, which most fantasy films like this will try to do. Then we have the characters, and this is probably the weakest part of the film, as none of the characters that are really the center of this film are all that interesting. Raiden is kind of your one-note hero They try to give him depth towards the middle, but it doesn't really work. All the other knights that serve under him aren't really developed at all. Guisamat is your very stereotypical bad guy who just wants money and power, and Lord Bartok would have been interesting, but he's not in the movie long enough. And Guisamat's sort of like henchman-guard is also kind of interesting, but again, he's not in the movie much, and the film doesn't focus on him. So it just kind of feels like we have characters with potential, but the film doesn't follow them enough, so we're left with a bunch of characters that are kind of one-dimensional. The performances are also kind of all over the place. We have wooden performances from Clive Owen, over-the-top performances from the guy who plays Guisamat. I'm not going to say his name again because I definitely butchered it the first time. And then we have really good performances in people like Morgan Freeman, who are definitely the best part of this movie, is when Morgan Freeman is on screen doing his best work. And he has this brilliant monologue in the film that he apparently did in one take, and I believe it. It is the best scene in the movie, easily. But once he's out of the film, everyone, again, is either wooden or overacting, and it's just kind of a shame, really. Then we have the visuals, and the visuals here aren't bad. For a low-budget studio and a low-budget film like this, I don't have high expectations, and I'll be honest, the effects works is infinitely better than I think it could have been. Yes, there's a lot of blue screen and green screen effects, but for a film like this, there are going to be those blue screen and green screen effects. But they're not terrible. I've seen a lot worse than what this film gives us. The music score is fine. It builds, it ebbs, it flows, as well as you expect. It's intense when it needs to be. I don't think it's fantastic. It's pretty standard as far as fantasy fare goes, but I mean, we could have gotten a lot worse. So, at the end of the day, Last Knights is fine. It's not the greatest fantasy film of all time, but it wasn't trying to be. I actually applaud this film for being ambitious with an international cast that it has. We have actors from Korea, Japan, Britain, America, Iran, and that is actually really cool. I mean, I think this film was actually ahead of its time in that regard, and I really would love to see more films like this with an international cast. That being said, the film's overall feel is still just fine. It's not great. I mean, the characters aren't well developed and the performances are all over the place. But at the end of the day, I still had a good time watching a film like this. And I think that's going to be what I take away from this. Now, is this film a buy, stream, or avoid altogether? Well, let's talk about the special features. The special features here are a behind-the-scenes featurette about the making of the movie, casting and crew interviews, and a movie trailer. And a look at the special effects work as well. And they're all really good. I do advise picking up this Blu-ray after you've seen the movie. I stress, you need to stream this first, because it's going to come down to personal taste here. This film is going to be good for some and terrible to many. I like this film a lot, but to be fair, it's right up my alley. It has fantasy, it has sword fighting, it has wonderfully done story and a wonderfully paced story. I love movies like this, and I'm going to love a film like this probably no matter what, despite its flaws. But I can see a lot of people hating this movie. So I stress, stream this one first, and if you like the film, pick up the Blu-ray, because there's enough special features here that it's worth the buy. But stream it first. I cannot stress this enough. Anyway, that's what I thought about Last Knights. What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. And next time, I'm taking a look at Dumbo. See you then.